So good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 9th webinar in BALLE's Accelerating Community Capital Series. My name is Christine Adjutant, and I'm a Managing Director at BALLE, and we're delighted to have all of you with us today. I'm looking at the sidebar. I can't see the exact number, but we usually have between 50 and 80 people who join us for these webinars across North America. So first I'm going to kick off with a little bit of housekeeping. I'm going to provide you with a few reminders about this webinar series and then introduce our topic and our speaker for today. So starting with housekeeping. If you are dialed in by phone but have not joined us in the webinar room, please find a link in your reminder email from Allie Walker. Because of the number of call participants, we have the phone line muted, so you will only hear my voice and John's. If you have a question for the presenter at any time during the webinar, please type your question into the public chat window on the right. The presenter may answer a question during the presentation, but we hold most questions to the end of the webinar when we have time set aside for a moderated Q&A. If you have technical difficulties at any point during the webinar, please note this in the chat window with your email address, and our staff member, Allie Walker, will contact you offline to assist. After each webinar, we email everyone registered a link to the call audio, the presentation materials, and a copy of the questions in the public chat window. So please look for that email from Allie Walker over the next couple of days. A little bit more about this series. Our Community Capital webinars are held the first Tuesday of every month at this time, which is 10 a.m. Pacific. The series runs from February through December of 2011. And the series is co-hosted by RSF Social Finance and Slow Money. And additional series partners include the Association for Enterprise Opportunity, or AEO, Portfolio 21 Investments, and Investor Circle. This series is explicitly focused on tools you can take home and try out right away. Each month we feature a case study with a community capital innovator, someone who has developed and piloted a working model for connecting local people's investments in businesses and farms to regional needs using regional resources. The innovators will present their model, and then we allow time for dialogue and questions at the end. We suggest that you treat these calls as an opportunity to bring together a group of business owners, social entrepreneurs, lenders, philanthropists, and investors in your community who are interested in this topic. Many groups find that it's useful after listening to the webinar. You might spend an hour discussing with your group the applicability or relevancy of the topic to your community. You won't have to pay extra per attendee to be on the same webinar line. So for our next call, which will be Tuesday, November 1st at 10 a.m. Pacific, we will be featuring targeted CDs, a strategy for getting loans to local businesses and organizations through partnering with a local bank to issue CDs to recipients you help identify, excuse me, including your own business or organization. There are several strong and growing examples of this, and we will take you through how it works and how to get started in your community. Watch our website and our email reminders for full details about this webinar, as well as our December topic and speaker. We'll also be continuing with the series in 2012, so stay tuned. So what I want to do now, we've done our housekeeping, is I want to transition us into today's speaker and topic, which I know you're all looking forward to. So today we're featuring the SOUP model, or supporting small businesses through local crowdfunding and community engagement. We're very pleased that our speaker is John Koller, founder of SOUP at Spaulding and president of Friends for Spaulding Court in Detroit, Michigan. SOUP events are rapidly becoming a popular way for large numbers of small investors to provide microfunding to small businesses. John is going to explain how this works and how the funding plus the community support built for businesses can have a tremendous impact on the success of a given entrepreneurial venture. John founded Friends of Spaulding Court in January 2009 to take advantage of a rare opportunity to convert a nuisance in the community to a community-owned asset. When Spaulding Court, a 20-unit townhouse complex, was seized by the county for excessive and unabated nuisance violations, FOSC stepped in to receive the property and guide its redevelopment. With little previous experience in business, John suddenly found himself immersed in the world of finance and development and relying on a handful of investors dissatisfied with faraway and nonsensical investments, the redevelopment of Spaulding Court is now well underway. So that gives us a little bit of a taste of the story. And as you can see on your screen, we're now ready for John's presentation. And with that, John, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you very much. And I'm happy to be here talking with you all today. Let's get going. I think that introductions are all in order. So let's see. The basic thing, Spaulding Court, I guess, is a 20-unit townhouse complex. Two buildings that face each other, has some nice public space in them, and they exist in a neighborhood in Detroit, which is Michigan, for those of you that aren't aware. That really, there's not a lot left in the neighborhood, and these are mainly still here because they're made out of stone and solid masonry, and kind of the reason that so much of the rest of the neighborhood is gone is because it was burned down, and these were just hard to burn down. So for a long time, this was kind of a major nuisance in the neighborhood, and people would sell drugs out of here, and their clientele would run around the neighborhood stealing things, and there was a pretty significant gun running operation that was headquartered here, and at some point it all just kind of burned itself out. And that's when we put together Friends of Spaulding Court, which is a little neighborhood grassroots organization. Took advantage of a little state law that says that counties can sell buildings to nonprofits for next to nothing, and so we bought this really nice structure and kind of the heart of our community for $1,000, which is very cool. One of the first things we realized after taking over is that people pay money for housing, and because of that, it was really not so hard for us to take the first steps, get little loans, because there's an expectation that I think is sponsored by our government, sponsored by the industry. I mean, housing costs money, typically around a third of your income. And so whether your income is big or small, you're expected to pay for it, which means you can borrow against it. And so we were sitting on this a valuable asset. Meanwhile, all around us, there's very, very little housing, but that's not to say there wasn't a lot going on. With all the land, there's lots of farmers that had like little gardens that were getting bigger and bigger. There's people trying to do composting operations to feed the growing need for nutrients in this kind of growing urban agriculture. I mean, it's all organic, and you're not using pesticides or fertilizers, but where are you getting nutrients? There's people who are taking old Airstreams and turning them into like healthy taco trucks and bringing food all over the city that was being grown in the city. So we're kind of developing these industries, and in our case also, we had a lot of people run around the neighborhood trying to bring this stuff to kids. And the Detroit public schools, I mean, the less said about them, the better. But there's an enormous awareness in the community that we've got to bring our kids with us. And so there's a lot of people doing that's knowledge coming out of that person's head into those people's heads, or wisdom or something. But we got to take kids with us. And so out of all of these things, there's not money for any of this. And so as we were kind of thinking after we had bought this thing without a plan, this giant building we didn't know what to do with, we were thinking about putting fundraisers together. It was very much in our mind that we were looking for something where we could raise some money, but also other people could raise some money as well. And we could support the things going on around us. I think we were keenly aware from day one that housing certainly doesn't exist in a vacuum. And, our mission at Friends of Spaulding Court is very much to promote strength and diversity in the neighborhood. And it's not just the rehab housing. So that's where SOUP comes in. And We first heard about soup at the beginning, really right after we bought the building. And I guess I can describe to you the basic model as it was described to me. You make some soup. You make a big pot of soup and get a bunch of people to come and eat it. Usually it's real cheap. A few cities do $10. A few cities do sundaes on ice cream sundaes instead of soup. There's a lot of variations on the theme, but the idea is you get some people, you bring them together, and you charge them a little bit of money, and you feed them some dinner. And then kind of the second component is that there's some presentations, and they get to vote. And so basically we vote with like a little tamarind seed and a basket. And the idea is you want to find really cool presentations of really cool things going on, because that's a draw. It's like an entertaining sort of thing. But at the end of the day, one of the people win. And so you have a winner, and you take the money you raised at soup, and you give it to the winner to do what they, to make their idea a reality. And so when I first heard this idea, I was like, wow, this is awesome. I mean, every neighborhood should have one of these. Every neighborhood in Detroit, every neighborhood around the world. I mean, this is a way to take all those kind of late night, hey, this would be awesome if we did this, and whether it's like going to turn into something or whether it's going to make life just a little bit better and then be done, or whether it's just going to fail, give it a go, you know what I mean? And so we thought about this model for a long time, but I think in the end we decided that there just wasn't enough money there for us to be dividing between us, because after all, we're looking for a fundraiser for us as well, and to actually give to someone as a grant to do something. And then one afternoon we were having a conversation, actually eating some salad from the local garden from the taco truck that was parked out behind Spaulding Court. We were having a conversation with our friends at Make Love Land, which they sell square inches of real estate in Detroit, which you can buy for $1 over the internet. And we realized we could probably tie in the internet somehow to this, because there's all sorts of people on the internet. That's what I think about when I think about the internet. And maybe we could get a lot of money in this pot, and then for all of our efforts to do this, we can get a little money and put it back into the building. So this is kind of how we messed with the soup model a little bit for soup at Spaulding. And a little more recently, we've started to kind of, that money that we're taking, we've started to program it a little bit more with the projects that we run. So I guess I wanted to kind of say what this is and what this is not, because I think there's a lot of, this isn't like a venture capital sort of thing. This is pretty small scale in terms of dollars. I think some soups get up to around $1,000, but for the most part, these are $200 to $400 or $500 grants that are given out for these ideas. And money is nice, but this idea of investing and then seeing profit and return, that's not really where this is. I think that this is what I have on the screen here right now. This is probably kind of the entirety of how like a capitalist sees the world. Got some money, I'm going to invest it in something, and then it's going to come back to me and be more money. I think probably the reason why a lot of you are here and interested in this stuff is that typically, like, a lot of bad can come out of this. If you don't care, if you're not interested, if you don't think about maybe a triple bottom line or something like that, this is just the negative externalities, the pollution, the stuff that comes out of us having a insufficient structure for our system. And then, that can feed back too, which is bad. You have crime, and maybe that's clean coal. They're having an idea. But we also have like social entrepreneurship, right? And we also have good things that come out of ideas, social benefits, and so there's clearly like some feedback there that these good motivations can help good ideas happen. And I think the one thing that we usually, the biggest chunk of this arrow right here is philanthropy, is people saying, hey, you know what, people should really be able to eat or sleep or have health care or whatever. And so those good vibes are going to make that idea happen. But the issue is that oftentimes we don't ever kick it into this, hey, well, let's make a little money off this so we can generate some investment and we can generate some growth in these ideas. And we kind of get stuck with this, we need to rely on very wealthy people to be supporting all the good in the world. And so recently, I think you see the crowdfunding, those sort of ideas. That's where this comes in here, and I think so. Soup is definitely in this little spot here, and it's a really small little thing. And I think we take the shotgun approach with it. Initially when we were doing this, we were doing it weekly. We were doing 3 projects a week. And it was, let's throw it out there. Let's give a lot of grants out, and let's see what happens. And so I'm just going to talk about a couple of the grants that we gave out, and you can kind of get a sense. I mean, honestly, they haven't all been great. A lot of them have been flops, but a couple of them have been really cool. This is our first soup event here. That's at Spaulding Court. We had hung a big old billboard fabric for a campground we had during the U.S. Social Forum. But this is the soup crowd, and we had never done this before, and we were doing on and about 12 hours of planning. This is Blair Nosen. She is the proprietor of Suddenly Sour. She was the winner of the very first soup and got a grant of, I want to say, about $75. And it really, she was, like I think a lot of entrepreneurs, plotting her business for a long time, but getting this grant and needing to come back in a month to give people an update on how she spent the money really helped. And she used the money to buy these jars, and she's put her pickles in them, and started a pickle CSA. So you could subscribe to this, and they're all like naturally fermented, like lacto fermentation, and you get like a couple boxes of pickles every month to chow on. So another project we funded was Detroit Dirt, which is a collaboration between a few folks, including this guy right here, Greg Wheeler, who's also a local grower. And he, I think, realized pretty accurately that there's a lot of waste streams around, and there's a lot of space in Detroit, and a lot of space in really industrial areas that aren't anywhere near neighborhoods that could support a decent composting operation. And so he got a little grant from Soup and was able to take that kind of community support and rent some land. And he just recently signed a contract with the Detroit Zoo, so he gets all the zoo poop from all the, I think it's just from the plant-eating animals, because I think the meat-eating ones are considered some other type of waste. But yeah, basically it's a pretty cool operation. So we were really happy to be able to support him, and now he's going to be providing this compost pretty affordably to people in the city to do their gardening. And I wanted to throw this out there. It does get cold here, unfortunately, and so we do go inside. So this is one of our soup pictures from the wintertime. And then I didn't want to finish without kind of, just advice on soup. So if you're going to take a screenshot of any of this, this might be the part to do it in. Get help. If you want to do this, don't try to do it alone. Find a bunch of people. I would say especially with helping recruit projects. I mean, when we started this, I couldn't imagine that I could possibly get to the end of the list of cool things that I knew were going on. But we were going through 12 of these a month, and after about 2 months, we were out of projects. And so, it's not that they're not out there. It's that your network's only so big. So cast a wide net. I think one of the things that we've kind of turned to is curating events and just picking someone somewhere in the city that's tapped in, that knows people that are doing projects, to kind of curate and pull a few projects together. I would definitely, you have to use the internet, at the very least, to publicize the event. And we use Facebook and we use direct mail at this point. I think there's definitely a potential payoff if you want to try to, make a video. And I see someone asked the question here. The question is, how do internet contributors give to soup? I think the way we've always done it is we use Kickstarter when we can use Kickstarter, and you can't always. We use another website called The Point, which is a little less slick, but has other advantages. And there's other websites out there. I'm a big fan of tipping point campaigns. You say, well, we need to raise this much money, or we won't raise any at all. It's a good motivator. Certain projects are a lot easier to raise funds for online. The difficulty always in this stuff is putting together the media that's required for it. And that can be a huge, huge drain if if that's on you and you don't have a group of volunteers to, schedule times to take footage and edit it, and even uploading it if you don't have a good internet connection can be a huge pain, and setting up the actual events online. And that just barely gets you to the part where, you've got to push this around. And if you're feeling like you're raising money within your network and you're not raising money within, the project winners network, then you can kind of get sunk on this stuff real fast. And so I think we've found that some groups are it's very good to, you get them exposure. They've never conceived of internet fundraising before, and especially in Detroit, where I think internet literacy is at a pretty low level. We're really, really happy with certain groups to get them on these, make them a video and show them the ropes of how to do internet fundraising. Another keep it affordable. Yeah, I think, you're giving people a lot. You give them food, and sometimes we put out a hell of a spread. And you're giving them entertainment if you've got good projects, and they get to vote, and there's suspense, and who knows who's going to win. So you could charge a lot of money, but I think really in all this stuff, the idea is that you bring together a really diverse group of people to these events. And one of the things we found is that the winners, of course, get some money, but the people who don't win often find that they get the sorts of things they need, because they're spelling out what they're going to spend this money on. We had a girl who was starting a mushroom farm, and she needed this special kind of wood chips, and she didn't end up winning. But someone in the audience came up to her and said, I've got that exact kind of wood chips sitting in my yard, and she got everything she needed, and she got a few other things as well. So, the bigger your crowd is, you might not maximize the amount of dollars, but you're definitely maximizing impact with the crowd size. Another thing we've found is that the closer projects are to where an actual event is being held, and I really literally, I mean, it's a rating. I mean, if it's right outside the window versus on the next block, it's, you know, that's the kind of local one. There's certainly a real strong connection to place, even though our crowd is not always 100% local. You have this feeling like, hey, I'm in this place, I want to help it out, and so I think there's a, you know, as you're searching for projects, you know, hit the local stuff first. I would say for sure, if you can innovate, if you can tailor this to your need, I mean, it's really, really flexible. We have in Detroit one other soup. We have one in Hamtramck, which is like surrounded by Detroit. It's kind of a neighborhood. It's its own city. Has a soup, and then Dearborn, which is like a close-in suburb of the city, also has a soup. And they're all a little different. They're all very much kind of the character of their place. And you know, you can kind of tailor this to fit your needs. You can make it a big production. You can keep it kind of small. You can do it out of a restaurant. You can do it out of a church. You can do it in a field. I mean, you can do it in a yoga studio. It doesn't so much matter. The idea is that you're hearing about cool ideas, and you're really giving people the sense that, you know, all you need is an idea, a good idea, and you can make something happen. We've had great success with free beer, and really, at this point, we get virtually all the food donated, soup from local restaurants, bread from a local bakery. I guess I would be a little remiss not to give a shout out to Avalon International Breads, Slow's Barbecue, Mudgee's, places that you should go if you're ever in Detroit. But free beer is the kicker, and we've gotten a lot of free beer, and it's just wonderful to get drunk with your friends and your neighbors. And yeah, make it big. I guess the things to avoid, just don't think that you can pull one of these off by yourself. Like I said, the biggest thing is getting projects. You got to have at least one person dedicated to soliciting project ideas and lining up projects, and, you know, because those people are going to help. They're going to bring their friends out, you know, all the project people, and, you know, you're going to bring your people out that you have through your channels. And so don't try to cook the soup for yourself. Maybe if you've got like a dozen people or so you're expecting, but it's not fun to try to make soup for 100 out of your kitchen. That's what restaurants do for a living. So they're happy to, at least in Detroit, they've been really happy to help us out. One of the things that we found when we were doing this internet fundraising is that video is really difficult to produce. So if you can find people to do video production for you, go for it. But it really is a lot of work, especially considering if you're really serious about this online stuff, you got to make a second video after you do the fundraising, after the money is spent, to kind of update your backers on how it went. And so you're talking not a huge amount of money. I think we top out our campaigns around $1,500 online. And to be making 2 videos for that, once you start putting together all the time it takes to do the coordination and the editing and everything else, it's quite a thing. One thing that we do is we make people come back and give a report on how they're doing. This can be really hard because, you know, failure is pretty common. I mean, sometimes there's a reason for it. Sometimes people are just lazy, and you really, you know, you don't want to develop a reputation of being that, you know, that thing you can go to and get some money, and you don't have to, you know, do anything, say anything for it. So when we get people back, we grill them, and you know, it's awesome when something goes well, and it sucks when something goes bad. And I guess we don't hide behind it, because we'd rather kind of learn from as a community that's really making these decisions. And we do have some continuity in the crowd we draw, but we want to encourage good decisions. Another thing, don't mix the competition. Don't put like a business startup in there with a lady who's going to make backpacks full of toothbrushes and socks for homeless people. I mean, you can do one, you can do the other. Like I said, there's a lot of flexibility in this model, but if you do them at the same time, it's not fair. I mean, you're putting a heavyweight against a featherweight. I mean, even though that business idea is a great idea, and it should happen, and it could win soup. You gotta put stuff together that goes together, and publicize this stuff. It's a lot of work to put on one of these events, and it's awesome when a bunch of people show up. But if you don't tell anyone, no one's gonna come. That's all I got for you guys. So I'd be happy to answer questions. I'm going to go out of this content. This is, if you want to write that down, if you ever want to email me about this stuff. But I'm going to go back into the link system.
John, that was really great. Thank you very much. And I didn't come off mute to laugh about sharing beer and getting free beer with your friends, but I'm sure I'm not the only one who was chortling. That was, I think that there are many local living economy groups that get all kinds of donations, and anytime you can have a better party, it's great. So I think I am having a slight technical issue on my screen, which is that I can't see the questions. So, John, I'm hoping that you can kind of help me as you see questions pop up in the public chat. Over the next few minutes, we can go ahead and field those.
Yeah, there's a few up here.
Okay, yeah. Great. Why don't I just hand it back to you then to field those?
Okay, so the Rob Sinclair is asking how much is raised at each soup. It's really crowd dependent. Like a really bad night for us, I guess, would be around 150 or 200, and then a really good night would be maybe around 600 or 700. And online, initially, we were just trying to kind of match whatever we raised at the event, and then I think when we were kind of gaining a deeper understanding of the costs associated with the online kind of video production and all the publicity work that, emails and everything else that's associated with raising money online, we kind of tried to raise the bar there. Like I said, we got to around $1,500. The next question: can past grantees receive more than one grant? Yeah, we don't have any rules against it. I guess we have a couple rules. One of them is that you can't, if you lose, you can't go again the next week. You have to take. We actually run it monthly now, but yes, so you have to take a month off. But yeah, I think often they don't, because the window for when these grants are useful is really, really early on in the development of a business or project or anything. And so while we've seen individuals come back for different projects, we don't too often see a project come back time and time again, just because they've kind of, hopefully, I mean, if things go well, they've kind of moved past it and are on to bigger and better things. So how did you frame the proposal to the city for the purchase of the property without a clear idea of what you wanted to accomplish? Well, I guess a little more of the backstory. In October of 2009, we got a grant to board up the building. The landlord had kind of dipped out. The county didn't own it yet, but was going through these nuisance abatement proceedings. And we boarded up a building that was owned by someone else. And with the exception of a couple of units where there's some nice people living who had kind of just hunkered down for 10 years. And so we, I guess the the office that was called the Nuisance Abatement Program at Wayne County, which has since been discontinued, kind of looked and said, all right, well, you've been involved with us, you've been helping us with the nuisance abatement thing, you've been doing good boarding up the building, so legally we're allowed to sell you this without anything. We didn't need to submit a proposal. We just literally came in with a cashier's check for $1,000 and signed a deed. This is from Leanne. She says, is this a fundraiser for Friends of Spaulding Court, and if so, how? Yes, it is. So basically the way we've been running it is we split the pot in two. And so, if we raise $500 a night, we'll make a grant of $250, and then we'll take the other $250, and that will, for a long time, going into Spaulding Court operating fund, which for the last year, up until a few months ago, was rehab. We were fixing one of the units up. At this point, we've kind of pivoted and are starting to use SOUP as kind of an organizing platform for us. And so in addition to the 3 projects that get presented, Friends of Spaulding Court, the organization, will do a pitch for a project of kind of like either short, medium, long term, whatever it is, a project we would kind of like to officially sponsor. And then if people are interested in their kind of contributing organizationally to that project, that pot of the money goes to that kind of as a startup budget for that little committee to do whatever. So this last month was the first time we've tried that, and one of the things, the thing that we're working on is an elderly woman nearby. She had to move out of her house to save on utilities, and so we're giving it a little facelift so it can get rented out and she could have a little income stream for her golden years. So I think at this point, yeah, I would say it's about half a fundraiser for Friends of Spaulding Court. Bruce says, how do you identify the projects and how often do you hold SOUP meetings? I think maybe it's a holdover from like when we were doing this weekly and doing 3 projects a week. But we would just put a call out to people in the community and just put it out there. We had a couple radio spots that were always looking for projects. And, I think we'll go over 3 if we need to. And essentially we have a lot of faith in the democratic process. If someone submits a project that's clearly not compelling, we'll say this is not that compelling. If someone submits a project that is, something cool and we want to support, but it's not really there, we've started kind of taking a little time to do some coaching of certain projects. The idea is that, you want to let people know where the money is going. You want to kind of let people know what the outcomes are going to be, and so oftentimes, you got to communicate. Not everyone has a whole bunch of experience sitting. God, we've done about 35 of these so far. So at the beginning, I used to have no idea who was going to win. Now I'm about 50-50 in calling the winners. So let's see. How often do you hold SOUP meetings? Like I said, initially it was weekly, and now we do it monthly. How do recipients get selected so that it does not get mixed up and ensure fairness or equality, as you said? What is your process? So one of the things that we've done sometimes is had themes. So when we put a call out, we'll put a call out for projects involving agriculture or infrastructure or charity or, food industry. There's like you brainstorm stuff, if you brainstorm categories, I'm sure you can come up with a lot of stuff. Another method we've used is to pick someone who operates within those themes and just to have them coordinate something around that theme, asking their friends and colleagues and whoever else who they know are working on projects to put something together. How many projects are presented at each event? We usually do 3. Sometimes we do 2 and give an option to roll the money over to the following week. I think once it got 2 votes, but it usually gets 1. Sometimes there's some dissatisfaction with the projects presented, but our voting booth only accommodates 3 options, so that's what we use. Judy Foy, what would you say is the most successful idea that has been thus far? Boy, it's hard to say. We've funded a lot of projects that have gone on to do really cool things. I think Suddenly Sour and Detroit Dirt are a couple of them. I mean, the Suddenly Sour is a really fascinating because she has a really strong commitment to kind of this slow growth, really careful way of thinking about how to grow our business, and community support was like a big thing, and so she was really happy to kind of get this nod of approval from the community, and that's really I think that's one of the biggest boosts that soup can give to like a small business is like that affirmation of, hey, I just stood up in front of a crowd of people, and there was other good ideas there too, but I won. A little bit of confidence before your first quarterly statement or before your bank account runs out. Bruce, you're asked a lot of good questions. Where are you located? Can we stay in touch? I don't know the answer to that question. But Bruce does. Died San Francisco. Okay. Do you know of any soups that structure their awards as loans? No, I don't. And I think I don't think that you would. Boy, this is a really kind of annoying question for a lot of reasons. I think the biggest is that we have an enormous amount of regulation in our investment system. It doesn't seem to be all that effective at preventing problems, but it really does at the bottom of the ladder here cause a lot of problems, because I mean, yeah, we could probably do personal loans if we did it that the attendees were somehow investors. I think we would really, really quickly run into SEC violations. Although there might be some state exemptions. I guess I'm not an expert on the matter, but yeah, I'm not familiar with too many. I don't know the specifics if other soups do this. I know there is a national soup network of people that share information, and there was just recently an International Day of Soup. I think in Detroit we have if you've ever met someone from Detroit, I think you probably know that we're kind of defensive and stick to ourselves and go to our bars and watch our sports teams no matter where we live. So we've kind of avoided the national scene, but we, as the 4 Detroit soups, we get together pretty regularly and talk about different ways we do things. I will say we did at the, we kind of had like a soul-searching meta soup the other, 2-3 months ago, and one of the options was to structure soup more like a microfinance kind of operation, where the money would go into a pot and presumably people could present to get at the loan money in that pot, and that would kind of revolve and maybe bear interest, maybe it would be interest-free. It didn't garner a lot of interest. I think the flexibility of soup to allow for things that are not revenue generating, as well as things that eventually are, but probably at this point aren't, that wasn't really kind of the culture that we had developed here. But like I said, I mean, if you can get around the legalities of it, and I don't know that there would be, as long as you had a sponsoring organization. I don't see why it wouldn't work. I think it could actually be really cool. And Bruce is asking, what is the favorite soup? Are you asking the soups? My wife made a peanut soup, a West African peanut soup. It was incredibly delicious. Yeah, that's my answer to that question. Are there any other questions out there? Oh, there is. Are you aware of the fact that the SEC is now looking into creating a regulatory exemption for equity-based crowdfunding? No, but that's really exciting. I guess when I first got into Spaulding Court, my first thought was, oh, we'll just have people give us loans for 5 cents, 10 cents, loan us a nail and we'll pay you back at some point. And then when I started exploring this, we realized we would be creating this sort of regulatory monster that would require hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of compliance work that wasn't really in the thing. So that would be really cool because I think we are certainly challenged. There's a state-based exemption, but Michigan is an incredibly depressed state and also one that doesn't have a huge amount of internet uptake. So, and besides, the whole point of the internet is you can do it once and connect with everyone in the world. And so, I think tying that model to something like this would be really cool. I know that Kiva has set up in Detroit. I believe it's going to be expanding to other American cities. But again, it's not. Kiva's cool, but you still have to kind of go through the bank process. You can't really go directly to investors. Cool. Thanks, John. I'd appreciate it. Cool. Is there any other questions? Christine, do you have any?
I don't. And I appreciate you fielding the questions from the chat box since I can't see it. So let me know if any others pop up. But I think that was really a terrific presentation and a great Q&A, and it's exactly what we want from this series, which is really applied, tangible examples of what's happening and successes around North America. So I thank you for that, and obviously from the conversation we know that a lot more interest has been generated and people walk away with a really clear sense of exactly how this happens. So that's great. I am going to go into some of our closing activities unless questions or comments have popped up while I've made those last comments.
Yeah, I think the only thing is someone put a link to fundit.ie. So that I'm pulling up that site now. It looks very cool.
Great.
So yeah, the only thing with these things is there's a certain, if you're not doing anything big, you can pretty much do whatever you want. But you really got to be careful, I guess, in everything. That as you start to, pass that $10,000 mark and get to the $100,000 mark, that you get your legalities in order, because you don't want to have the feds come knocking on your door.
Great. So super. I'm going to move us into some final comments and some bookkeeping that we use to close the webinar. But I, again, just want to extend to you, John, a big thank you. That was really a terrific presentation. And I want to emphasize the point that I made at the beginning of the call, which is that we really encourage listeners to the webinar to think about bringing people together, using the webinars as a group learning experience. And that extends to the fact that this webinar has been recorded, and everyone who's registered, all of you who are on the call right now, will have a link to the audio, but that it can also be purchased. So let me go through our closing reminders, that being the first one. After each webinar, you will receive an email that connects you to the call audio. So you'll have a copy of that as well as the great presentation materials that John shared with us today, and a copy of the questions that came up through the public chat window. So you should have that in the next couple of days. You should watch for it in your email, and if you for some reason don't get it, Allie Walker is the one to contact. And then you can always purchase these webinars. If you loved what you heard today and you want to promote this information or have someone else who wasn't able to join today hear this presentation, you can purchase these webinars individually, or you can buy a series pass for a 33% discount. And you can register on our website at www.livingeconomies, all one word, .org. And you would reference the Community Capital Special feature on our homepage. Also, I want to remind you to join us on May 3rd. We're very excited. We're featuring a model for cooperative grassroots investing from the La Montanita Co-op in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Robin Seidel, the co-op's membership and community development coordinator, will speak about their efforts creating La Montanita Fund to facilitate cooperative investing, and we know that that is going to be great. And then as just a final closing, a final thank you to Dawn and to everyone who has joined us for the call today. Thank you, John, for sharing your experience, and thanks to all of you who not only asked great questions that made it a richer dialogue, but also shared some of your information and some links and some references that fill out the conversation. So thank you very much for that. And before I close the call, we'll ask my partner John if anything else has come up on the chat box that we should address before we say goodbye.
No, I think that's it. And I put my email address on there, and I guess I just want to thank everyone for, I'd never heard of BALLE, or however it's pronounced, prior to this, and so it's really cool to see a bunch of people fighting back and doing cool stuff. So yeah, keep it up.
That's really terrific. Thank you. And now that we are connected, John and everyone on the call, probably some of you already know, but our annual conference next year will be in Michigan. It will be in Grand Rapids, and that is in May. And we would love to see all of you there. There will certainly be some great presenters from the region, and so it's exciting to hear about the SOUP model, which is obviously one of the success stories about how people in Michigan are addressing the economic challenges. So we hope to see you all there, and John, it would be great if you're around and you can make it.
Yeah, hope to be there.
Okay, great. Well, thanks again to John. Thanks again for all of our participants. Be looking for that email with the audio link, and with that, we will conclude today's webinar.